As we enter along the journey to not only identifying our dream, but identifying the gift that will lead to our dream, and we're chasing that actual dream that we are destined to reach, there's one word that we all know is going to be detrimental and absolute along the way, and that is influence. And when we are in the space of influence, it's very important for you to identify what C's, what B's, what P's, whatever letter you choose to use, is going to be that thing that'll take you to successful influence. So if you're ready, let's go.
The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melonē.
Hello, everyone. I am Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher, here to bring you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you manage your financial baggage the right way. What an honor and privilege it is to be before you all for yet another live stream night on the Debt Demolisher TV. And I want to welcome you inside of the DDTV room, because that is where you are on this wonderful, what day are we now? Monday. Motivating Millionaires Monday. Let's just make sure that we call it that. So as we jump into our day, we have been reading The Dream Chaser, that is authored by none other than Mr. Tony Gaskins, in recognition in honor of National Business Month, National Black Business Month. Let me get it right. And we've been coming here night after night, taking the book 7 to 8 to 9 pages at a time. And this book has been extremely influential, extremely eye-opening, and also extremely encouraging as we pursue the very thing that we were, I guess, designed and destined to do. I can't say that the timing of us reading this book during this month, during this season, during this time could be any other word other than perfect. And I'm just hoping that all that we've been reading throughout this month, we're winding down. So this is day 29. We have 2 more days remaining after we conclude our live stream tonight. But I do want to encourage you that despite us closing out our readings and getting ready to close out our readings, that doesn't mean that the work isn't done. That doesn't mean that we can coast. That doesn't mean that we still can't pursue and even, I'm going to say, identify what our gift is. Because one of the things that we've been doing as we've been reading this book is making sure that we're identifying what that thing is, because that gift is what is intended to bloom within you and bloom out of you. So it's important that we find it, that we identify it, that we acknowledge it, so that way we can actually water it, so that we can put it to use. And then so that way we can make it a viable seed, a viable seed. So your gift is a viable seed, and it's waiting for you to do something with it. It's waiting for you to see it. It's waiting for you to leverage it so that you could have a sense of influence, making a difference in the world for the betterment, not only, your life, or maybe even your family's life, or wherever you are loving on, but also, for the manifestation and for the glorification of the one who gave you the gift and the seed in the first place. So with today being covering chapter 21, we jumped into chapter 21, which is influencing influencers. And influencing influencers is a powerful chapter. We read this chapter all the way through to the end. So we started on page 239, got all the way to 245, and that closed out our chapter. And if we took the time to really read it, digest it, sit in it for a while, we would have really been able to see that the reason why we do what we do is bigger than us. It's bigger than the benefit of us. Let me say it that way. So, depending on what your desire is and depending on what your dream is, because most times when we think of wealth accumulation or we think of wealth building or whatever the case may be, we're thinking about the life that it could bring to us and maybe even the life that it could bring to our family. But when do we actually sit down and think about the lives that the work that you're doing or the product that you're creating is actually touching and transforming and like really having an impact on? Really having an impact on. So on page 239, Tony Gaskins continued the conversation around how as an influencer or you're trying to influence influencers, everyone has a sense of insecurity regardless of where they are and what they do. And he says that what you have to realize is that we all have insecurities, and those insecurities may not be hugely or like transparently shown on someone who is a celebrity or who is an influencer or who has a huge visibility in whatever market or industry that they're in, that they too need guidance because everyone is trainable. Everyone needs to be able to learn. So you're learning new things each and every day. He also says that even those who are looked up to, they need guidance as well. He says that they have to sound so sure that they feel 100% that they know that they know what they're talking about. And one thing that he said that I thought was extremely important, especially when we're in the space of speaking and sharing information or sharing encouragement or sharing insight, anything that some other person can be able to receive, that when we speak it, it should be spoken with a level of surety, with a position of confidence, and not only that, with the belief that what you say and what you share will serve the person who's receiving it, who's hearing it, for their betterment. It will change their life if you truly believe that from your core. So he's saying if you're going to advise someone, then be sure about what you're saying, even when it comes back to bite you. He goes down further on and he begins to kind of share a little story about how he was so transparent. And one of the things that he said to a person that he was coaching, he got some feedback from one of his family members. And it was like, man, that's bold. You know, you realize you're telling people what to do with their life. And his cousin was basically like, I couldn't do that. But Tony Gaskins had a firm belief in his heart that because of all of the coaching that he did do, all of the stories that he did hear, all of the real live examples that he not only lived through, but he's seen other people go through, that the advice that he had given to this particular person was one that he felt with surety was what they needed to do. So this takes me to the quote of the day. And the quote of the day says, "It's not the easiest thing in the world to give advice, but if you know that you know what you're talking about and you've been put in that position, then people are counting on you." So if you know what you know and you have been positioned, then people are going to be expecting you to bring whatever it is that you deliver. He says that it may be fashion advice, it may be dieting advice, it may be financial advice, it may be life advice. Whatever it is, it could be anything. But he's saying, regardless of what it is, you have to know that you know it. So whatever your specialty is, whatever your desire is, whatever your gifting is, you want to be able to own that 100%. He continues on by saying that if you want to help impact the lives of many in a positive way, then you've got to speak up. You've got to speak up if you want to be able to change the lives of others. I circled this piece on page 240 because I thought it was powerful. He said that he knew that there wasn't a downside to having self-respect. He says, if you can't be sure about what you're talking about, then don't even talk about it. Don't even talk about it. You have to be able to study hard enough and long enough to be able to share whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you know, to make it easy enough for a 6-year-old to understand. He said, just like the tips in this book, he says, if you do it my way, it may take longer, but no, it won't ruin you. Tony Gaskin says, I can share these tips with confidence that they won't hurt you to be hands-on in your business. Take your time before signing with a major. Learn something about every aspect of your business and be consistent in your gift. Be consistent in your gift. He says that I'm very confident about that advice because there's no downside to it. This was essentially everything that we've learned. So all of the things that we learned, all of the things that we were able to pick up as a result of being inside of this group, being inside of this reading, being inside of this book, is essentially the very thing that we should ensure that we put into practice. He continues on by saying that you may take some of his short advice and go shock the world over the next 5 years. So this made me write down an exercise to say, what are the things that you're going to implement as a result of what we have been reading this entire month from this book? What items, what notes, what nuggets, what steps, what things have you jotted down that you are going to commit to or that you've already committed to doing? I can even be transparent and say some of the things. Well, I'm not going to say some of the things, but I can be transparent and say, as I was reading this book, there were things that I had identified and I wanted to actively work on, and maybe not even actively work on it right away. But there were some things that I was like, you know what, this is something that I should do right now. This is a practice that I should take right now. This is a concept that I should consider right now. And some things you jot down and you save it for later, but whatever you feel as we read, what you find, what's resonating with you, create it as an exercise for yourself, not just to jot it down, but to execute on it, because that is where your transformation and where your results are going to come, by doing, not just by reading and sitting on something. So he continues on by saying that if we take this advice, whatever we choose to pick up from what we've been reading, he says that within 5 years, we may turn around and shock ourselves. And he says that we may end up sending him an email saying, hey, Tony, I took your advice and became more consistent in my gift and in my career, or in my gift, and my career has taken off as a result. And I'm reaching thousands of people now. So Tony Gaskins ends that quote. He's given a sample statement of this, probably the kinds of emails that he gets on an everyday basis. Says, guess what that means? That means that I became an influencer to an influencer just because I knew what I knew. Just because I knew what I knew. Tony continues on by saying, my client gave me very short advice without hesitation or questioning and answering it. I felt I could trust that answer, and I took that advice. So he's talking about how when you speak from a space of surety, when you speak from a place of confidence, people will be able to trust what you say. Because if you say it in a way where you have some ambiguity around it, you have some unsurety around it, then why would they even believe you? 1 second, you guys. He continues on by saying his process. He continued to be consistent in what he did. Tony was very consistent on Twitter. Very consistent on Twitter. Even after his post or his tweet got retweeted by Alicia Keys, which took his Twitter following from, I can't remember the count, maybe 200 and something, or maybe somewhere around there, to over 25,000 Twitter followers. And even when that retweet happened, he didn't stop there. He kept posting, he kept tweeting, he kept sharing his messages. And even as he got to this space, because at this point, I believe he had surpassed the 300,000 mark. Yeah, because I think I read that part already. Yeah, he had already surpassed 300,000 Twitter followers. He was still tweeting in the mornings. So he said that he was up one morning because he got to work. He did the morning shift, and he was sending out his tweets up early in the morning. He said it was a Saturday, so most people were asleep in the United States. He says on the West Coast, it was 3 a.m., and on the East Coast, it was 6 a.m. He said, I sent out a quote, and I can't remember what the quote was exactly, but he said the next thing he knew, he got a direct message from an A or a B-list celebrity. And the celebrity asked him to give him a call. So he said he darted outside from his job. He darted outside and gave him a call. And then the person who he called says, hey, I just want to tell you that you've been so instrumental in my growth. You have no idea how many times your advice on Twitter has gotten me through the day. If you ever need anything, just give me a call. And if you're ever in LA, swing by my house so we can talk more. Tony said that he was blown away by this message, by doing the thing that he was consistent in doing, tweeting his messages, being consistent in his messages, and not letting the increase in his following slow him down or stop him from doing what got him there in the first place. So he continues on by saying that he was surprised. And we don't know when that suddenly is going to happen. We don't know who's looking at what we're delivering. We don't know who is looking for the very thing that we share, especially if it's something that has been shared on an everyday basis. You don't know who is waiting for your message. You don't know who was waiting to hear what you have to say, because it may be the very thing that they need to hear in that moment. It may be the very thing that they need to hear in that moment. He says that he began to share his strategy with those who he was mentoring. It's like, hey, this is what I did. Alicia Keys retweeted my post as a result of this. You should try it. And so He gave the recommendation for them to do it once a week, but the persons who he was mentoring, they were doing it every day. So they were doing it every day. And he said, all of a sudden, their followers would increase into the thousands. Their following would increase into the thousands. He says, now they could just tweet their own quotes and reach so many more people. He says it was crazy to realize that these celebrities are human just like us, and they need guidance and they need motivation just like the rest of us. And he also says, if you know what you know, lend that advice to someone in need. But I want to go back because I think, and this goes out to the people who are influencers, like especially in a celebrity capacity, because they have so many people that look up to them. I know many of us, we look up to Tony Gaskins. We respect his teaching. We respect his transparency. We respect his authorship. We respect his business model. We just respect a lot of what he does because he's so real about what he does. And he is also very intuitive, like spirit led as well. So he sees things and he can call it before anyone else could possibly see it. So when we think about those who we look up to, those who we look for advice from, those who we look for inspiration from, those who we look for motivation from, those who we look for answers from, we have to realize as well that they are humans too. They have things that are going on in their lives. They have things that they want to be motivated in. They're motivating the world, but who is motivating them? They're motivating the world, but who is really motivating them? So when Tony Gaskins says certain things on his videos and says how much he appreciates the messages or the notices or the emails or the direct messages, just acknowledge and saying thank you or just pouring in, that gives him an opportunity to feel like how we feel when we receive things from him, when we receive words or when we receive a message that's like that message right on the dime that we need to hear in that moment. He can get a glimpse of getting poured back into in some way, shape, or form. He also says that it doesn't have to be a celebrity, meaning if you know what you know, lend that advice to someone in need. And it doesn't have to be a celebrity. It could be an everyday person. He says that I've coached people who had virtually no following, then fast forward a couple of years and they were reaching millions. He says, I coached their potential, and their potential translated into production, and that production turned into influence. I had to write wow in the margins with 3 exclamation marks and underlining it 3 times because I think that this is absolutely powerful. He continues on by saying that even as an influencer, influencers are watching others. Influencers are watching others. Influencers are getting influence from others in some way, shape, or form. So Tony Gaskins talks about how he recently watched a guy on YouTube start teaching about wealth. He said that this guy started teaching and he showed basically whatever he had to show for it, which was a car. He says if he knew he had, I'm going to go down. I'm not even going to read that part. He says he was talking about some pretty heavy stuff and that information was way over his head. He said, I didn't really want to get into it because it was too hard for me to understand. He couldn't explain it to a 6-year-old, and neither could I. He says, I could tell that he had the gift. I knew that he would rise to the top, but I'm just not sure how long it would take for him to get there and how long it'll last. But he knew that he would get there. He said, I looked back on YouTube a few months later and he had gone from a guy with just a car to a guy with multiple cars and a massive house. He says outside of that, he had to become an influencer to influencers. Why? Because he was hanging out with them, he was talking with them, he was featuring them. And because of the 3C's, which is what today's live stream is entitled, the 3C's to successful influence, he said Tony Gaskins says that he firmly believes that it was his confidence, his content, and his consistency that got him in front of those celebrities or those high influencers, for them to be able to even talk to him, collaborate with him, feature with him, and so forth. So consistency plays a huge role in things. Your confidence plays a huge role in things. And the type of information or the type of content or even the type of product that you're delivering and that you're serving up to the world makes a huge difference in the level of your success. I added a bonus, I circled this and labeled it as a bonus, is that complexity is the bonus to influencing or to successful influence. Sometimes people can run from complexity, and sometimes complexity can make it your niche. It can make it your specialty. It can become your gift, or it can become the fruit of your gift in terms of it being complex, especially if you can say it in a way where you can make complex content or complex topics easier for people to understand so that they can be able to do something with that information. So complexity is a bonus. So if you have confidence, if you have consistency, if you have the content, and then if you have complexity in your content, but you make it easier for people to digest that complexity, then that's your 3C's plus 1, 4C's to successful influence. He says you don't have to argue what you know. You don't have to debate what you know. Just know what you know and keep sharing. Just know what you know and keep sharing. He said that that's all I did. And that helped me build to the point where people who have larger brands and earn more money started coming to me for advice. He continues on by saying, I just know that no one will follow someone who is unsure of themselves. So if you have any doubt, and again, you can look up what you believe surety means to you, surety versus unsurety. You can look up how to know if you are sure of yourself, and not in a boastful way, not in a braggadocious way, not in a cocky way, not in an egotistical way, but how to know if you are sure of yourself in your gift, meaning you can have the confidence to show up in your gift no matter what and deliver no matter what. Because when you back it up with a know, like you know, then you're going to show up in the way that you need to. And the person who needs to receive it and the person who ends up seeing you is going to know that you ain't faking it. He continues on by saying that we live in a world today where you can get in front of influencers rather easily. If you have a product, some influencers will promote it for you for free. If you know your product is good, then you can pay them once and have a supporter for life. He told the story about the woman on Instagram where his wife, Mrs. Cherie Gaskins, bought some jeans for their son. He says, my wife buys these jeans for my sons that she found on Instagram. The woman who makes them is just a regular mom. She made a pair for her daughter. She made a pair for the daughter of a megastar once. And if you guys listen to Tony Gaskins' video, then you know exactly who he's talking about, because he shared the story in a video and shared the person's name. So we know exactly what he's talking about. But he says she made a pair for the daughter of a megastar once, and the megastar posted the jeans on her Instagram page. And then the ladies' company went through the roof. He says that same megastar lady retweeted a blog site that he also used, and the blog went through the roof. From that retweet of the blog post, the founder of the blog became a celebrity, got a book deal, met Oprah, and now tours the world. He continues on by saying, if you are consistent, you'll find yourself in the right place at the right time one day, and your life will never be the same. He says, start positioning yourself to become an influencer. And if you get the chance, leverage the power of influencers you come in contact with. Nearly everyone whose brand grew organically did so with the help of someone with a large reach. Take that into consideration. Take that into consideration. I just had to write testimony in the margins of that. I've shared my story several times, and I just want to encourage you as we wrap up this chapter reading to believe in whatever it is that you're doing, even if it feels like no results are being visible, even though it may feel like it's not being received or wanted or desired or believed by others. Still believe in yourself. Still believe in your gift. Still believe in your assignment. Because at the right time, as he said, at the right time and in the right place, one day it's going to happen overnight. He continues on by saying on page 244, if all else fails, do it the old-fashioned way and just work until you get your break. He says there may not always be an easy way or clever idea that comes to mind, so you just have to stay the course and wait your turn. There are actual influencers to influencers who no one knows. He says there are people who don't have a following, aren't online, but yet they influence some of the biggest influencers in the world. They were operating in their gift. They were operating in their gift, and their life changed forever because they happened to be at the right place at the right time. He says their influence helped shape cultures and generations, and the world at large never knew who they were. He says, look at the people who have inspired you. And I wrote in the margins of this piece as an exercise, because I think sometimes we forget to look at those who has been instrumental in our lives, who has influenced us, who has inspired us, who has encouraged us to go from one stage to another, from one exam to another, from one position to another, from one platform to another. There's always someone who may have encouraged us in some way, shape, or form. And I don't think that we often revisit that list to see who has had an influence on us. When I think back on my career, I shared this story before about one of the partners in the firm that I had worked for, who I felt was very instrumental in my professional career. I literally was in awe, like, of her presence and her stance and how far she grew in the company. She was literally at the top, and it was just inspiring to see a woman who looked like me in that space, in that position, in that role, and the only one, and the only one. And it was inspiring to see. So every chance I get, I go back and I let her know, like, and I thank her. Thank you for being a role model. Thank you for mentoring me. Thank you for showing me how to operate professionally. Thank you for being the example. Thank you for being the example, because some people don't get the favor to work for great people in leadership. Some people do not get that option. Some people do not get that opportunity. There are some people who work for people who literally try to sabotage the people that are under them. And it's very rare that you're going to find someone who wants you to elevate higher than them. And it's very rare that you're going to find people that's going to want to push you to that level and actually mean it. And actually mean it. So there are people in your life that I'm pretty sure has had an astronomical impact on you, that has had a huge influence on you, whether you want to recognize it, whether you want to acknowledge it, whether you want to let them know or not, they have. So I think it's imperative to include an exercise for you to really think about who has influenced your ways, who has influenced your aspirations, who has influenced your desire, who has influenced your desire. Think about it. Make a list. I remember when I was in my leadership development program a few years ago, one of the exercises that our executive coach had us do was to identify who we felt like was an influential leader, like who we looked up to as a leader in terms of, like who demonstrated like great leadership. And I think the person that I picked was the only person that was up on the wall, because we ended up having to put it all together. Like we had to print out a picture of them, and they ended up making this collage. I thought that was pretty cool too, by the way. But I had to remember why I even selected that person, why I printed out their picture, and why I said that this person was influential in my life, or in my life post personal development, being exposed to personal development. So make a list of those who have influenced you. Tony Gaskins talks about those who he looked up to in terms of influence. He said that there are also people who you would never know, who may not ever be known, that has definitely influenced him. We already know that his wife is a huge influence on his life. And Tony Gaskins says at the bottom of page 244 up to 245 that whoever influences him has a lot of influences. He says, I know my wife influences me. My father influences me. My sons influence me. My mother and sister influence me. But none of them have large followings. He says, my wife, which is Mrs. Cherie Gaskins, has touched a lot of lives because of her influence on my life. Now, that's how you give somebody recognition. That's how you give somebody acknowledgement. That's how you let them know that because of the influence that you have on me, you have now influenced so many other people that has been influenced by way of me. He says, the millions who have seen my name online may never see my wife's name, but they were influenced by her influence on me. Well, we know Mrs. Gaskins' name. We know Mrs. Gaskins' name. We know Mrs. Gaskins' name. A woman's influence. We know the name. We know the name. We know the name. A Woman's Influence. Make sure that you get this book too. If you haven't done so, pick up A Woman's Influence. It's available on TonyGaskins.com. Tony closes out chapter 21, Influencing Influencers, with this. There are many ways you can be significant and have influence in the world. Don't feel like you have to do it the same way I did, or that you need to do it at all. If it's your calling, if it's meant to be, it will come to you along the journey. He says, if and when it does, embrace it and run with it. You will be a world changer. You will be a world changer. So what did I write at the bottom of this chapter? That when it comes to your 3 C's plus the bonus, having the confidence, having the content, having the consistency, and then the bonus is having the complexity, or being able to break down whatever complex subject matter that you may cover, or whatever complex, issue that you may be addressing. Because something that you produce in terms of a product could be something that could alleviate somebody's physical pain. It could make them feel better about themselves, whatever the case may be, whatever that pain is that you're alleviating, the complexity in whatever that pain is that you're alleviating is the 4th C. But in that, trusting that the timing of your influence being an influence to others, especially those who are influencers, that it will come. And it's imperative that we do it in an authentic way, not in a copying way, not in a comparison way or a competing way, but in an authentic way, in accordance with your gift, in accordance with what you naturally show up and do. And I also wrote down at the bottom of this, operate in your gift in your own truth. So operating your gift in your own truth. When it comes to you wanting to be an influence to others or being an influence to influencers, you got to operate in your gift in your own truth, in your own way, in your own way. So that wraps up chapter 21. We've concluded with chapter 21, and now our reading assignment for tomorrow is going to allow us to open up with chapter 22, which is entitled Work-Life Balance. So we will be reading from 247 all the way to 253. So 247 to 253 is our reading assignment for tomorrow. Tomorrow is day 30. And so we will be reading the entire chapter 22 as a part of our readings for day 30. And we will convene right here tomorrow at 7. So you all, this has been a great Motivating Millionaires Monday. Yes, that is our theme for the day. I forgot to give Coach Root a shout out and acknowledge her for giving us our theme for the day. Each and every day, we collectively as a DDTV family and a DDTV unit has come up with themes for each day of the week. And with today being Monday, today is Motivating Millionaires Monday, as you'll see scrolling along the bottom of this screen. So shout out to Coach Root for being our theme creator of today for Monday. So welcome, welcome, welcome. As you can also see, if you're just tuning in for the first time, you can pick up a copy of The Dream Chaser. Don't be afraid to join in with us, even though we're winding down on our readings. There's a designated playlist that is saved and linked on the Debt Demolisher TV's homepage, where you will see all of the live stream recordings that was related to the discussions of this book. So when you get your copy of the book, you can take it 8 to 9 pages or 7 to 9 pages at a time to get through it, to get you through the rest of the month. If you want to take it 30 to 31 days at a time and follow along by listening to the replays of the live streams that are inside of the playlist. That's called Build Up, Getting to Your Core Purpose and Dream with Tony Gaskins for Black Business Month. So you guys, it has been a wonderful session. Thank you so much, Q Scott, for putting the page assignment down for everybody to be able to see in the chat. Our page assignment is 247 to 253. So glad that you're here and inside of the room. So glad that you're here and inside of the room, you guys. Shout out to Q Scott moderating for tonight. Thank you so much. We have Queen Lisa H in the room as well. Says, you go. Proud of you, Coach Sheena. Coach Sheena in the room. She must have dropped a testimony. Come on, somebody. I'm hearing some good news coming forward. I'm feeling it. Let me scroll up till I find it. Come on. I've been inspired by my DDTV family. Okay, what is the news, Coach Sheena? Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I just says I'm listening while walking. Okie doke. Okie doke. Acacia's here. She says, welcome to the room, kings and queens. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, join, and take notes. Yes, 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 you guys. Shout out to Acacia, moderating tonight's live stream room as well. Thank you so much for being here. Q Sky says, welcome, Mirel. All right, we have a new space in the room. So glad that you're here. So glad that you're here. There you go. Hi, Mirel. So good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome on into this room. Tracy Ann says, hey, Lisa, still on the road. All right. Q Sky says, September is going to be another busy month. To ensure you don't miss out on any channel changes, updates, or video drops, make sure you have notifications set to be alert for all. Yes, please. Thank you so much for that, Q Sky. Speaking of next month, we do have a book that we will be reading, but it's not going to be live streams. It's going to be premieres. So it's still going to be the same time, but it'll be like a live chat feature and I'll be there, but it'll be video drops. So we're doing Hello Tomorrow by Dr. Cindy Trim for the month of September. So if you have not picked up your copies of that, or if you missed the notification around that, I highly encourage that you pick yours up as well. Okie dokie, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up because it's already busy already. And we're like a couple of days from September. So I apologize if I don't have as much energy as I normally do. But yeah, it's been a day. So I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank all of the DDTV fam, everybody that tuned in tonight, the moderators. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Q Scott and Acacia for moderating tonight's live stream. I appreciate you guys. Make sure that you come back tomorrow. We're going to do day 20. We're going to do day 30. And we'll be wrapping up for National Black Business Month. Make sure if you're not subscribed to Tony Gaskins to please subscribe to his YouTube channel. I have links in the description box that takes you to his YouTube, that takes you to his website, that takes you to his Instagram and Twitter and everything. So please feel free to click on those links, follow his pages, follow him on social media, follow him on TikTok, follow him on YouTube, follow him on LinkedIn, follow him on Instagram and Twitter, and also pick up your copies of the book if you have not had an opportunity to do so. And then meet us in the room tomorrow if you can. Again, thank you to all of the DDTV fan members and Patreon pledgees. I appreciate you all more than you know. And I want to remind you that your financial prosperity awaits you. And so does your financial sanity. You already know what I'm going to tell you to do. And that's what? Get to work. All right, you guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.
The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melone. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia